is the crypto-Judaism. And crypto is related with the word secret. And also talking about a possibility of let's say, a character of the history of Peru, who was, by the investigations of some specialists, and including one very famous archaeologist, Peruvian archaeologist, Hugo Ludeña, that was Jewish, that was a Marrano or a crypto-Jew, was Francisco Pizarro. And Francisco Pizarro, the great conquistador of this territory, the man of the weapons of Peru, the one who, thank you, Andrew, muchas gracias, the one who dominated the Incan Empire. This man, which for most Peruvians will never be connected with the Jewish tradition, left also many incognitas, many mysteries, many secrets. One of the secrets, the biggest one about him, is the ancestry he had from his mother's side. When you look for the information about his, let's say, for his father's side, family tree, the information about his father's side is very clear. They were all Catholic people of what we call abolengo, of high status. What about the mother? So there are few things mentioned about the mother, which is already very interesting. Some historians have discovered that Pizarro possibly hidden this information in purpose to not, let's say, ruin his political or military career. So the mother of Pizarro, she's pointed out as belonging to a family of merchants, and which were in the business of selling clothes and fabrics, and also she's pointed as Portuguese. When we talk about Portuguese in the colonial times, most likely we are talking about Jewish. So, but also there is another interesting element, and this is the part of the mystery. Pizarro's body is located in his crypt in the Cathedral of Lima. That is located right next to the main square of Lima. I've taken you in some occasions to the main square in my virtual tours. And inside the cathedral, since the passing of Francisco Pizarro, that was the year 1541, he was murdered by an enemy band of conquistadors, the group of Almagro, the Almagristas. So when he died, the body of Pizarro was buried in the cathedral, as of course any good Christian would be. But there is something interesting. The place where Pizarro was buried, which was at the entrance of the cathedral on the right-hand side, was also many years after, in the 1970s, was investigated for some, let's say, fixing process, and also the section below the main altar of the cathedral. We're talking about the 1970s. And something amazing happened. Below the main altar of the cathedral, the actual body of Pizarro was discovered. So Pizarro's body was not where it should be. It was in a different location under the main altar of the church. And this is the most interesting part of the finding. Here we have a box of lead, plomo in Spanish. This is a metal. And inside that box was discovered the skull of Pizarro, the head of Pizarro. So we can see some inscriptions over here. We have some inscriptions in which it says, like, here's the head of the Marquis, Don Francisco Pizarro, right? And some other inscriptions related with the status of this man. So you can see that from the above, we have some inscriptions only, and there is a little symbol here, but, it's so like a delicate that it's very hard to see. So what is the symbol? We're going to be talking about this in a little while. So these are some pictures of the 1960s when he was, his skull was discovered below the main altar of the cathedral. Basically in this section, in this part of the wall, this is exactly below the main altar. And here it comes a very interesting character of the story, the person who put up like everything and tried to come to an understanding of why the body of Pizarro was not in the place it should be, and instead was another person, we don't know whom, another mummy that we don't know what's the name of that person, but it was instead of Pizarro. So Mr. Hugo Ludeña, he's a Peruvian archaeologist. He also published a book about this finding, and at the end also I'm going to be telling you the name of this book if you would like to follow it in the internet and see it in the internet. So Mr. Hugo Ludeña, the discoverer of this finding, he found something fascinating, like the elements that you see in the box, the design in the box is exactly like this one here, right? It's very interesting. And he realized that this was not a Catholic symbol at all. So the symbol is called the six-petaled rose, and he immediately realized that this was more like a Hebraic symbol, more a symbol related with the Jewish tradition. So look at this drawing. Now this is the drawing of what is in the box, on the top of the box. So you can clearly see the same design. So also associated with the Star of David, the six-petaled rose was a symbol used by crypto-Jewish, especially the Sephardic group. So this is something really, really amazing, right? So also another thing that is very interesting is that in ossuaries or ossariums from the, let's say, the period after the passing of Jesus Christ, so we're talking about 2,000 years ago, the same symbol was used, let's say, left in these ossariums, and the tradition of burying in these ossariums is called ossilegium. If you would like to follow, let's say, or later keep going with this investigation, please take note on this name. This is a form of burial that consisted also in first permitting that the body, let's say, rots like disintegrates, and after that, in small boxes, the bones were left in, right? Or all the parts that were left after this process of natural decomposition. And now we're going to talk about another interesting part of this history. This is the Inquisition period. Now here you can see the symbol of the Inquisition. We have here the sword and the olive. And this is also very curious because the sword symbolizes the treatment given to the heretics, right? And the olive, or let's say, leaf was related with the reconciliation. So the Spanish Inquisitions in America were actually many. We had in the early 16th, 17th century, we had in total 3 Inquisitions in territories that were very, very important. The Mexican and the Peruvian Inquisition were born at the same time, almost. And the one in Colombia, the one in Cartagena de Indias, a little bit later in 1610. So, but in the case of the Mexican and the Peruvian, they started to be in function in the year 1570. And in the case of the Peruvian one, it functioned until 1 year before the independence in 1820. So this is the building of the Inquisition in Lima. The building of the Inquisition in Lima nowadays also is very curious because at the entrance, what you see in this section, it says Museum of the Inquisition and the Congress of Peru. So how come the Inquisition building is connected with the Congress? Well, after the Inquisition was abandoned as an institution, was abolished, the Congress was born thanks to José de San Martín, the Argentinian liberator of our territories. And this is the time, of course, when the building was repurposed and it became the office of the Congress. And it became the Congress until the beginnings of the 20th century, when another building, bigger, more proper for this, let's say, purpose, was created right across. So the Inquisition building used to be a museum until before the pandemic, and the circuit inside used to be able to, let's say, conduct you back into the colonial era, a time when the Inquisition was the terror of not just the Jewish, also the Protestants, the women, men that practice the natural medicine, the bigamous, anyone that was not living according to the law of the church, the idea of how life should be by the church, the Catholic Church. Right? And here we have a section which, of course, we cannot see anymore because the museum is closed, but thanks to the internet, we have pictures about the tortures, the chamber of tortures inside the circuit of the Inquisition. So something very important is the Inquisition, this institution that is very famous, was not run by the church directly. It was run by the kings of Spain. So this was an institution that was organized by the king and the queen, by the monarchy, right? So, but with the help of the church, the ones that conducted, let's say, and organized everything here, the religious arm, let's say, that was there, was the Dominican order. So here we have some of the tortures that took place inside of the Inquisition. Also, notice something really interesting. Women were not exposed to these torments, the ones that are more like physical, like in this case. But for example, this one here is the only one approved for women in the old days. And it was, it consists of something very, very simple. So there was a piece of fabric that was sucking water and it was put in their mouth, and they started to throw, like completely immobilize the woman, throw water inside their mouth. So there was a feeling of asphyxia, a feeling of drowning, and these sessions did not take longer than 30 minutes. In most of the cases, they were, let's say, checked by, controlled by also other personalities, other characters. No? So, but of course, many of these, let's say, sessions were secret. No? So we really don't know if at the end this control was in the way it should be. So here we have a story of one of the most famous Jewish characters of Lima. And the name of this person is Manuel Bautista Perez. Manuel Bautista Perez was a Portuguese man who came to Peru around the early 17th century. Manuel Bautista Perez, he was a rich millionaire at some point in the colonial times. He had many friends, but also many enemies. The source of his wealth was the trade, the commerce, and also he is known as a big slave trader. Something really interesting, no? Because nowadays many people, especially people that are like religious, would say, how come someone that was a person of faith or was involved in the slave trading? Well, we cannot take out the context, the character of the history period, right? So back then, in that period, it was very, very common that rich people and trade, they made money from slave trading. So he was a rich slave trader back then. So the story of Manuel Bautista Perez is also very sad at the end, because we know that the house of Manuel Bautista Perez in Lima became eventually the first synagogue of the city. No? So this building you see here, this is one of the oldest pictures we have of the synagogue, the first synagogue of Lima, and it was a secret synagogue, of course, because the community lived here in secrecy. It is located, by the way, next to a monastery, the monastery of the Franciscan order. So I think the best location ever. If you're trying to hide, let's say, a synagogue in the colonial Lima, the best location would be right next to a church. Nobody would imagine. So the name of the house is, it used to be called the Casa Pilatos. What nowadays is the Constitutional Tribunal, is a high court. This is how nowadays it looks. It's a UNESCO, it's protected as part of the UNESCO Heritage Zone of Lima. And the story says that, this is a really interesting story from the colonial times, that mentions that the way how this synagogue was discovered was that, well, one day, it was a Friday night, so far we know, a man was completely drunk, was in the streets of Lima, walking from here and there, and he was looking for fun, looking for, like drinking, for some music. Lima was very dark by nighttime back in the old days, in the early 17th century. So he possibly was so drunk that he confused the place he was going to this house. So he got inside the house was like with the doors half open. He got in, and somehow he got very, very deep into the house, into a section that was very private. And once there, he saw a group of men that were speaking in a very strange language. And well, this is the part of the added part that history added to this story. The story says that they were lashing, like beating the image of Jesus Christ, right, all together, right? So this is of course an exaggeration of what possibly he saw, but remember, he was drunk. The story says he was drunk, and after that he left the house. He ran in direction to the Inquisition, and he accused all the people that he saw in this event directly to the Inquisition. Next day, we're talking about the year 1634. Next day, the inquisitors came to the house of Manuel Bautista Perez and took everybody to the Inquisition. We know nothing about Mr. Manuel Bautista Perez until 4 years after, in the year 1639, when he was burned as heretic. He was burned as Jewish. So this is one of the stories of the many people who were killed by the Inquisition. Are there any Jews still living in Peru? Carol, thanks for your question. Actually, yes, but the community is very small. And the people living nowadays, the Jewish people living in Peru, in Lima especially, the Jewish community is not the descendant community of the first one, because eventually we all integrated in the colonial times. 16th, 17th century are the last periods we see united Jewish community in Lima, and then after, well, eventually there had to be an integration. So yes, David, approximately 3,000. Last time I talked to the people from the community, from the synagogue, one of the 3 synagogues we have in Lima, they mentioned that we're a little bit less than 3,000 because there are many emigrating from Peru. So here you can see also a painting from Pancho Fierro from the early 19th century, around the year 1820. When is picture how the people who were accused of being heretics, let's say, of not repenting from their sins, were killed by the Inquisition publicly in the auto de fe. And this is also the way how they dressed up. This is the San Benito. This is the sort of like the uniform that these people used before killed. Gracias, David. Thank you so much for your support. So you can see here, for example, the twisted cross represented that their relation with the church, which was not the correct one. No? So that shows that they had not a proper relation with the church. And this San Benito cloth dress was used when they were taken in processions to the Auto de Fe. Gracias, Madeline. Thank you. Another story, we're coming to the end also of the stories, is Ana de Castro, the beautiful Toledana. She was from Toledo in Spain originally, and she was killed in the last Auto de Fe of Lima in the year 1736. After 1736, the Inquisition continued functioning, but they were not as active as as before, like not in the way of gracias Liz, not in the way of persecuting, let's say, Jews or Moors or let's say any other faith. They were more afraid of the independence, revolution, so they became like more like chasers of books, right? So the last big Auto de Fe, 1736, was also the one in which Ana de Castro died, and she was known as a beautiful woman, as a woman that was very advanced, let's say, in her days. She was a very modern woman, and she had lovers, and she was very attractive. And since that one of her ex-lovers, let's say, because she didn't want to be with him, she just passed to another man. He, very angry, accused her of being Jewish. And how he did was like he got engaged with the maiden of the lady of the Ana de Castro, and he asked her to put a cross below her mattress, right? And he accused the Inquisition that she was Jewish. So when the Inquisition noticed the cross below the mattress as a sign of, like that was not considered to be a very good sign, because he also said she had many men and she slept with those men in that bed. So it was like a way of, like disrespecting the cross. So she was taken to the Inquisition, and in the Inquisition, she actually said that she contemplated Shabbat, that she learned to do that from her family, and that some of her relatives in Spain died by the hands of the Inquisition, right? So she was burned also in Lima. This is an image of the Auto de Fe, how the Auto de Fe took place in Lima City. That's the main square of Lima. Actually the same fountain you see nowadays there. The building in the background, this one here, is where nowadays is the house of the president of Peru. Back then was the house of the viceroys. And these ceremonies were very bloody, and people love to participate of those because, well, it's the blood always attracts, right? So it was like the morbus, basically, that attract people towards these events. So initially, the burning of the Jews and the Moors and the Protestants took place in the main square of Lima. But later on, when Lima grew too big and the population grew too big too, eventually the authorities of the time decided that the burning could not happen there because the smell of the burned skin was too strong. So that's why it was made a decision of taking the quemadero to another location, approximately, let's say 600 meters away from that location, from the main square. So this is the place where that quemadero, that burning zone, is located nowadays. And here we have a plaque in which is located nowadays in that zone, where all the people from the most important religious authorities of Lima, it was the year 2001, organized to unite and to create, let's say, a union pro the, let's say, respect of the memory of all the people who died by the hand of the Inquisition, of the Spanish Inquisition. We see, for example, a rabbi, we see some pastors from the Protestant church, we see representatives from the cross, back then the mayor of Lima, the lady you see over there. So all of this union in order to, let's say, like be united and to commemorate the souls of these people who died in the period of the Inquisition. So briefly, and this is the last part of this event, I would like to tell you about the community of Salendin in Cajamarca, this very interesting case. And if you would like to learn more about this theme, I highly recommend you to follow and to read the books of Mr. Nathan Watchell. And this gentleman, he's an historian. He has put lots of emphasis in his, thank you, Mary, thank you, Liz, in his investigation related with the Jewish community of Peru from the colonial times. But he didn't focus in Lima. And you know why? Because Lima eventually melted too much, right? So it was a big city with the Inquisition just around the corner. So it is understandable that the Jewish people who wanted to continue practicing their faith, they had to run away. So what they did was going to the north of Peru. So Lima is here, right? And we are seeing a complete different location up there. This is Cajamarca, located in the north part of the country. Actually, my family from my father's side comes from there. And I will also share with you some things that I've learned from this community over the time. So it's going to be really interesting for you all. So the emphasis actually of the investigations of Mr. Nathan was in this section, in the district or province of Salendin. My family from my father's side are from there. So some interesting things that I would like to share with you are, for example, here in this list. First of all, Salendin was founded by a Jewish converso. So this put us in the right location, in a right position, because we can see that this community started with Jews, right? Also, another thing really interesting is that these people that were Portuguese, they are described as Portuguese, the immigrants of this community, they were for sure Jews, because this was the way how in the old days Jews were called, like Portuguese, right? Also, another interesting thing is the Chilicos, the community of that section are called Chilicos, which Shiloh, so far I know, is related with the name or the word followers of the Messiah. Also, another thing related with the Portuguese community, the Portuguese origin of these people. Cursed or maldito in that zone is actually, as said, maldiciado, and maldiciado is a Portuguese word, so we can see some roots of the Portuguese presence there. In the cemetery, also in the cemetery of this community, you can find stones or roof tiles in the graves, and this is something you will not see anywhere in Peru, just there. These stones, these tiles are given as a present or as a let's say little token from the family to the dead. Also, there is a chapel in that location that had no cross. This is a colonial chapel. How come a colonial chapel had no cross until the early 2000s, when finally it was necessary to put the cross in the chapel? The burials also, the burial tradition was without a coffin. People only used the coffin for moving the body to the grave, and then after, the body was covered with a linen, and after that the coffin was used, was taken to be used again. Gracias, Eve, thank you. So also in the graves, let's say in the epitaph, there is a symbol of a star for the birth date and a cross for the date of the death. There is also endogamy in these communities, and most likely related with the intention of maintaining or keeping the traditions. And eventually it became, gracias John, it became a tradition that continue and continue, but eventually with no understanding, right, of why doing it. In the culinary, there is a unique soup that is done just there, the sopa de pan or pizza salendina, which is a combination of bread and cheese with no salt. Bread and cheese with no salt and some herbs on top, right? So this is something unique to that community. In that zone also there still are prayers and worshiping to the Eternal Father. In no other part of Peru you will see this. You will see the Virgin of this, Saint of that, but not to the Eternal Father. The Moises of the city are called Moshe. That's the only place in Peru where you will call Moshe Moises, right? And also, well, this is also very interesting. At the arrival of the house, people usually do this. They knock, before knocking the door, they touch, well, you will see this, this possibly is the opposite to you. With the right hand, the frame of the door, right? They do the sign of the cross, and they then knock the door, or they get in, right? So this possibly is memory from the past, right? Of the tradition, right? The Jewish tradition of touching. Sorry, I cannot remember. So many words are in my mind in this moment. This fragment of the Torah, right? That is here on the frame. Mesusa, thank you, David. Thank you so much. So many words in this moment, right? So possibly this was a way to remember that, right? Thank you, David. And over here, I think we are not focusing well here. Finally, okay. In some families, it's lit up candles on Friday night. But this is a tradition that now is almost gone in the whole zone. And here we have the chapel that has the crosses on top nowadays. The chapel of Santa Ana de Chaquil. This is the picture of the pizza salendina, this traditional dish that only is eaten in that zone with the cheese with no salt. And, well, this is a little bit about me, just 2 minutes to tell you something about me and why I am so interested in the history of the Jewish presence of Peru. First of all, in the last names of the Sephardi, let's say, descendants in not just in Peru, in Latin America, the last name Vasquez is repeated in different ways of spelling it. And here, well, I want to present you my grandfather, Segundo Vasquez. He is originally was from Salendin. He passed away some years ago. And something very curious and also described by the people, the visitors to Salendin, like since that city was built, is that the Salendino descendants are very, very fair in skin, light skin. Although the picture does not make justice of that, my grandfather had blue eyes. He was very fair. And he had very, very, let's say, clear brownish hair. So very unusual because indigenous people of Peru are not like that. So nowadays, thanks to the investigations of Mr. Nathan Watchell, I am sure there might be in my family some traces of the Jewish, let's say, immigration, the Jewish blood, because in that territory where my family comes from, it was practiced the endogamia. So it was part of the traditions, and many of these traditions I've mentioned were also repeated by my family without actually knowing the origin. If you would like to learn more about this story, also maybe you would like to practice your Spanish a little bit if you don't find the translation into English, here you have some books and also some videos. Follow please the videos of Mr. Nathan Watchell. He has lots of excellent lectures about this theme. And also, I highly recommend you the book Francisco Pizarro, The Secret Symbol, from Hugo Ludeña. So this is the one actually I use for the event today. And don't forget to follow Sayuri just in a couple of minutes in her Untold History of the Slavery. Also, Olga today has a tour at 4:30 my time, GMT -5, about the war in Ukraine. I think it would be wonderful to have the chance of hearing her perspective about this situation. Oh, gracias, Paul. The next event I'm going to be conducting, hi, Michelle, is about the Japanese immigration to Peru. If you would like to learn about the untold history of the Japanese immigration, please stay tuned to this event. If you can, please, at the end, give me a follow to my channel. You can also, if you are just interested in this tour, you can give a follow to activate a follow to this event. So in that way, you are going to have the chance of every time I put it again. And remember, it's going to be always something new. You will be able to participate. Here you have all my information, my Facebook, my Instagram, my website, and my upcoming tours always in heygo.com/Vanessa. And gracias, thank you, Caroline, Barbara, Adrian, muchas gracias. Thanks for your support. Thanks for coming to this event. I am not a historian. I am a tour guide. I'm an official tour guide, fascinated with the history of my country, in love with the untold histories, the untold stories, and also happy to share these stories with you all. Tomorrow I have a tour. Yes, Paul, thank you. Thanks for sharing this event I have tomorrow. I have a tour about the to visit the famous cats of the Kennedy Park, and after that I have a tour about romance, about romantic stories. So please join me. It's going to be so much fun. And if you want to see this event repeated tonight at 8 p.m. my time, I'm going to repeat it. Okay, so you can jump there if you have the chance to do it. It's going to be late for my European friends, but I think it's going to be fun for to see again by my friends from North America that are not so late for them. Muchas gracias, Chirag, thank you so much for your support. As you know, well, your tip support is the fuel that helps us to continue creating these events, and also we are supporting Heygo at the same time, because a percentage of the tips you kindly share with me, are going to be also shared with Heygo. Muchas gracias. And now I think I'm going to be joining the tour of Sayuri too, so see you there. Take care. Lots of love from Lima, Peru, and until tomorrow. Gracias, Paul. Gracias, amigos. Take care. See you. Bye-bye. Thank you. Until next time. Until tomorrow, I hope. See you. Bye-bye.